All right, guys, welcome back to the First Responder Real Estate Podcast. My name is Brian Waters. I'm a fire captain in LA County. I've been able to scale my portfolio to over 20 properties in 4 years. The point of this podcast is I'm trying to reach out to first responders all over the country who are doing something different outside of the fire department. And this is not just for firefighters, this is for all our first responder brothers and sisters who are nurses, doctors. And if you're just an everyday hero, you're welcome to learn here. The point is we want to learn together, grow together, try to build our portfolios, raise our families, and do cool stuff. But anyway, today we have a really special guest. This is my very, very first guest. That's not just me. People are probably a little bored of me talking. And so I'm super excited to welcome Fire Captain Jesus Chavez. Welcome, Jesus.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm very excited to be on to deliver some value, and I can't wait to get started.
Yeah, man, this is so cool. We've had a few conversations in the past. I've been following your journey for a long time. So real quick, tell me what fire department you work for and a little bit about yourself and the fire service.
Sure. Yeah. So as you mentioned, Jesus Chavez, I work for Santa Fe Springs Fire Department. I've been there going on 14 years now, which is crazy to say. I feel like I just got hired yesterday. I'm a captain as of right now. I'm a family man. I have kids. I have a business. I invest in real estate. So I do a little bit of everything. A lot of it is centered towards, the fire department side as well as real estate. But I'm very, very busy and I love it.
Right on. Yeah, dude, it sounds like we got hired right at the same time. So how old were you when you got hired?
I was 21, tail end of 21.
And is that something you always wanted to do? Did you always want to be a fireman?
No, absolutely not, dude. I am like the last person you would ever think would be a fireman, and I'll be totally honest. I know there's people that have been wanting to do it forever, and I love that. Super commendable. I was not that person, I got bad grades in school. I barely passed high school. I started college. I was getting all D's and F's, and I ended up running into one of my buddies who was a volunteer for Monterey Park. So I ran into him from school, and I go, "Hey, what are you doing?" And he told me exactly that. I'm a volunteer firefighter. I go, "Oh, that's cool, dude." Thought nothing about it. I was working sales at LA Fitness at the time. And I started thinking about it over the next few days, over the next few weeks. I go, "Dude, I'm not going anywhere with college. I'm at this job. It's not what I want to do forever." And I started thinking about it. I go, "Dude, I was raised up in a Christian household. I love helping people. I like working with my hands." And I go, "Dude, I'm gonna go for it. I'm gonna ask him how I become a firefighter." Fast forward, I saw him. I go, "Hey, dude, how do you become a firefighter?" And he goes, "Hey, you have to do X, Y, Z." The same day, I asked my manager. I go, "Hey, I want to go to firefighter school, if you will." At least that's what I thought it was called at the time. I go, "Is it possible for me to work part-time?" He goes, "No, it's full-time or nothing." I go, "All right, well," I put in my 2 weeks, and the rest is history. From there, I was dedicated at school, got all just straight A's because I had a purpose at that point.
That's awesome. So it seems like the fire department kind of turned you around a little bit, and you got hired young. Like I didn't get hired till I was 33. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, do you think that do you advise people to kind of hammer that when they're young? I know a lot of people are getting on at an older age now, but what's your advice for some of the younger kids if they want to get into the fire service? What's a good route for them to do it?
So my advice would be, whether it's a fire service, whether it is, being a police officer, nurses. I know we have a lot of that audience. Really, whatever the route that they choose to take is to go all in, and not have a plan B, right? And that's something that carries over the real estate stuff side now. But it's very easy to give yourself an out or a plan B. Don't do it. Go all in. If it's something that that you want to do, go all in. Don't have a plan B, and give it your all. And I promise you'll get there. I think nowadays, with just life in general, we're very used to like instant gratification. And I think if you could prolong that learning curve, or that horizon of when you think you'll be able to get there, you'll be in a good position, right? Because it takes time to do it. And with me starting, I started at like maybe 18 and a half, 19. Like I said, I got hired by 21, or towards the tail end of 21. A lot of, honestly, what helped me was not knowing how hard it was to get hired. And I'll be totally honest, I was like, hey, if I want to get hired as a firefighter, I'm going to get hired as a firefighter. And I didn't know that you had, hundreds, thousands of people applying for only a few jobs. So that helped me out tremendously because I didn't get in my own head and I said, hey, I want to do it, so I'm going to do it.
Awesome. So, this show is a lot about, thank you for sharing your story about how you got into that. And we're going to talk more about how you kind of interweave your life as far as being a firefighter and your job outside of there. But like, I want to talk about real estate specifically. At what point in your fire career did you kind of, I wouldn't even say veer left or right, but like what sparked your interest in real estate? Was there like a defining moment where you just decided like, I need to do something else? Or like, did you try other stuff first, or like what got you into the real estate game from, because most people just put their heads down and go to work and just spend that 30, 40 years in the fire service and then retire. Like, was there some specific moment that got you to where you're at?
Absolutely. So my defining moment, and I could pinpoint it right down to damn near the day, was the day that I came home from work. I looked at my paycheck. I looked and saw how many hours I had worked during that specific year. And it showed that I had worked like 1,100 hours, right? So I looked at that, I divided it by 24, and I saw that I was working an extra 40, 45 days out of the year. So at that point, I had a 2-year-old daughter. So I looked at my daughter and I said, dude, I just took an extra 40 to 45 days away from her on top of my regular 48.96. I go, there's got to be a better way to do it. There's got to be something I could do, something I could invest in. Like, I'm going to research. And I started researching, right? I started to just see what was out there. And that was right around the time where we bought a house. Like, we had bought a house shortly before that. And we had fixed it up. And this is me not knowing anything about anything at that point. We bought the house for a certain price. I ended up like Zillow-ing how much it was worth. And I looked at it and I go, dude, that is insane. Like, just the amount of equity that had built in the house, right? So I think that specifically sparked my interest towards real estate. And I had no exposure to it before that, right? You're talking to someone who grew up very humble beginnings, I'll put it like that. I've always lived in apartments. I've never lived in a house. So it was my first time seeing like the power of real estate, if you will, and just seeing what was possible, right? And I looked at that equity and I was like, dude, in my head, I'm like, I'm rich. You know what I mean? Like, I'm rich because I'd never seen that kind of money before. The possibility to have that kind of money. So then that led to me doing research. That led to bigger pockets. And then, dude, the rest is history. At that point, I was hooked. So I started researching. I started learning as much as I possibly could. And now, we've scaled to a few doors, a few rentals. So we're extremely fortunate, extremely blessed.
Nice. So I want to get to your portfolio in a second, but are you trying to tell me that if you buy a primary residence, it's actually an investment? Is that what you're trying to say?
Absolutely.
Okay.
It could absolutely be an investment if it's used correctly.
So,
and that's something that, go ahead.
Oh, no, to say, yeah, I run across this with a lot of the younger firemen I work for who they want to start doing these other things. They want to start buying investment properties. But the first question I always ask them is, do you have a primary residence? And for me, I'm in the same boat. Like, I bought this hoarder house when I was in my 20s, and I moved a bunch of roommates in with my wife. It wasn't until she was about to give birth to the kids that we actually moved out. But I'm going to be straightforward on this show. I want people, this is all about transparency.
Yeah.
We bought that place for $500,000, and this was a long time ago, right? Put a lot of work into it, but I've been able to pull money out over and over and over again to invest in my different portfolios. And I would never, ever, ever had that much money to do that if I hadn't done that first. So I'm glad that you agree to that, and I think you are saying that you do agree. But
absolutely,
I'm hoping that we can inspire some of these younger first responders to actually get into their first properties, and I want them to realize they don't actually have to put this massive chunk down. There's a lot of incentives and stuff. So would you agree to that?
Absolutely. I think that's real estate in general is one of the biggest vehicles, or one of the best vehicles, in order to be able to invest in other things, right? And when you're new to it, you don't necessarily know all of the intricacies. You don't know all of the possible options. So it's good to do research. It's good to be, in communities such as yours. It's good to ask questions because you open yourself up to that many more possibilities. So, if you're on the younger side and you're unsure, just ask questions, have no shame in regards to having the will to better yourself, to do better, and I think the fire department or the fire service in general is very unique, right? Because a lot of the people that are firefighters, that are in the fire service in general, they want to do good, they are great people, but it's also important to take care of yourself financially, right? And I know that there comes that like that weird kind of pulling and pushing where it's like, oh, I'm not in it for the money, I'm not in it for this or that. Dude, the fact of the matter is we live in Southern California, which is a very, very expensive place to live. And oftentimes cost of living adjustments don't keep up with inflation, right? Pair that up with your department missing a few years of cost of living adjustments, and you're that much more behind because it all compounds, right? So be smart with your money, right? I always tell the guys, especially the guys that are newer on, this isn't, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, where you were able to get hired at the fire department, buy that boat, buy that river house. It's not the same, right? So you have to be super, super savvy when it comes to your money and how you invest it.
Yeah, good point. I've been part of our peer support team for a long time, and we get these phone calls a lot, and a lot of it comes down to like people having problems like divorces and having financial problems, or them being kind of with a lack of a better term, like a slave to the job. Like, first and foremost, I want to say this out loud. I love my job. I love the fire service. I'm grateful to it every day. I don't want people to think that this is about like that Jesus and I are trying to like quit what we do, because like, we both swore to the community, and we both would die for the people that we serve, right? And so, but what this is about, for me at least, and I think you'd agree, is that young kids in general, including myself when I was younger, we never learned about finances. And I think there's different types of mentors out there. There's guys in our job who are like in the training cadre, and they're like super dedicated to that, and I love that. But there's also another kind of mentor you could be, someone who can look back at their prior life and go, man, Brian, I screwed that early time up. How can I tell these younger guys who have an opportunity, who make really good money, to not screw it up? So, I'm going to, like what I'd like to talk a little bit about is a little bit more about that real estate journey. And like, after you're watching Bigger Pockets, I got going with Bigger Pockets, and I still listen to them pretty much every day on my commute. I love it. But what was the first thing you did in real estate besides your residential property? So now we're back in your in your 20s, and you have your first property. Like, then what? Like, what did you decide to do?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. And I think one of the very unique things, and I'll get to your question a little bit, but I think one of the very unique things in talking to people that have been in real estate for a while is that you get to learn from their mistakes, right? And, much like all of us, like, one of the really cool things is that I've made the mistake, so hopefully other people don't have to, right? So I'll tell you exactly what I did. Is we had our house. We ended up thinking that we were timing the market, which you've heard a million times, that we were timing the market and that we were selling when prices were high. So in our mind, we said, hey, let's go ahead and sell this. We'll cash out on all of the equity. We'll rent for a year, and then we'll buy our forever house, right? And I was still super early on. Like, the idea of investing heavy was there, but I wasn't solidified in it, right? So anyways, we ended up selling at what we thought was the top of the market for like $515. The house is worth like $750 now. So it's a whole nother story. So we ended up selling, we ended up renting for a little bit. And then is when I really started diving into to multifamily and to investing. So we ended up buying a triplex.
Nice.
We ended up using those funds, or some of those funds, to buy that triplex. And I'm the type, whether it's good, whether it's bad, where I'm going to go all in and I'm about it, So I knew that I wanted to invest. So I saw what I thought was a good deal, a fixer-upper triplex, and I took it, right? That came with learning lessons in itself. But I'm glad that I at least took that leap, right? We got that triplex for around $650, I want to say. It's worth 1.3, 1.4 now.
You still have it today?
Yeah, we still have it.
So I know I'm kind of skipping forward, but how long would it take you as a fireman through your deferred comp or overtimes to make around $700,000 that you made versus what you did? Just curious. Like,
yeah,
I mean,
it'd be a long time. I'd have to sit down and do the math, but it'd be
we're talking
long
20 plus years. And so how long have you had that triplex?
I've had it now for, let's see, going on approximately 8 years.
You guys, this is exactly why the two of us do this. If you could find another way to make $700,000 or $800,000 in 8 years, and I know this is like, I'm not saying it's easy or anything. What I'm saying is these are the possibilities. Like, if you were to make that much money working overtimes, you'd probably have to work 100 plus a year, like for multiple years. So awesome job on that, dude. That's like a mic drop moment right there, because that's just proof that real estate works. And
absolutely.
You probably didn't even really know what you're doing either. You're just like, I'm just going to go for it and see what happens and kind of learn as you go, right?
And that's exactly it, And at that point, I didn't have the information that I have now. It's, I've obviously learned a lot throughout the years. But one of the things, and even as of recently, I'm not gonna lie, is I've really been more about looking for the right guidance, being in the right communities, talking to the right people, because I'm somewhat old school, or I feel like I was more old school in the fact that I'm like, I'm gonna do it myself. I'm gonna learn myself. I'm gonna take on this flip myself. I'm gonna do this, do that myself. And man, you're going to get a lot further with the right knowledge and the right people around you, and that's something that back in the days I was like, oh dude, now like these people just want to do this or that, or have, people come to them. And it's not like that, dude. Like you have to be very selective in who you go to. And I do think that's a huge part of it. But I think surrounding yourself with the right person is huge.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, to this day, like obviously I have this, a little bit of a mentoring and coaching business, but
yeah,
to this day, I still pay to learn the things that I don't know. Like my most recent thing is like we're buying an Airbnb. I don't want to just wing it because you could lose a lot of money. So I paid a mentor who happens to be a retired detective. I'm trying to keep it in the first responder community, but he's crushing it, teaching me this stuff. And for those of you out there who don't believe in that, like I'm not saying you're not smart enough to learn the stuff on your own, but I'm just going to give one example of something that happened to a guy on our job, and it breaks my heart, truthfully, because he didn't want to. He didn't really. He said, "I'm going to go learn this on my own." I'm like, "Great! I hope it works out." He went and bought a triplex out in Texas, and he didn't realize that he's supposed to get an inspection on it. And so he purchased it, and the day it closed, he took his contractor down there, walked the property, found out he had $75,000 in foundation problems. That could be solved with like one phone call or a systematic approach to purchase and look at real estate. And so, it's heartbreaking to me because I think people, I wouldn't say they cheap out, they just don't invest in themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And you can learn a lot of the stuff on your own. There's a lot of good resources out there, but to this day, he's still climbing out of that hole, right? Yeah. And I would argue we're talking about mistakes. Like early on, like you're saying one of your mistakes is you may have sold that property when you should have, but it led to where you're at. But
yeah,
it's okay.
Well, and you brought up a good point, and I want to make sure I capitalize on that, because being around a lot of successful people now, a lot of people that have a lot of money, right? We help investors buy here in Southern California. You're out of state, which I think is awesome. But one of the things, right, if you're even thinking about it, you're younger, you're looking to possibly invest in a mentor or a community. Me being around successful people that have a lot of money, I've learned that the one thing that they pay for, or that is very important to them, is speed, right? And it's really cutting down on that learning curve. Like you said, you'll be able to really figure anything out given enough time. But successful people pay for speed and to cut down on that learning curve, to not have this and to have that, right? To be able to put your time, your efforts into things that actually matter, like family, like, going on trips with them, like a lot of other things. Just cut down on that learning curve And you figure if you do, you're not only going to be able to get to where you want faster, right? But it's going to cut down on that time horizon, which is huge.
Yeah, I think you made a good point. Like, for some of this is a great quote that I heard recently. It was actually by Dion McNeely. He's a retired police officer. You'll see him all over social media and doing stuff. But so people are looking for the get rich quick schemes, right? I was a part of that. I have no joke, and I'm embarrassed to even say this out loud, but at one point I lost like $30,000 in a stock because I'm sitting around the fire table at the lineup and people are talking about this stock. And I was young. I was like in my young 20s. I had saved up a bunch of money, and it was like an underwater mining company. Like literally, I'm laughing at myself.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm so freaking glad that happened because it was like a never again moment. But the point is, we all make stupid young mistakes when we're these young firemen making a lot of money. But one thing I want to kind of reiterate for everyone that's listening is this is not a get rich quick scheme. But what Dion says is it's kind of funny. He goes, real estate is a get rich quick scheme. You just have to realize that 10 years is quick. And I like that quote because we're all working this 30 to 40 year career, but what if you could fast forward your life a little bit? Doesn't mean you have to retire, but you have the option to, right? So for those of you who are thinking about doing this, just have the expectations that you're not going to be retiring a year from now or two. And I get that a lot. I always ask, like, what's your why? And then it said, oh, family, I don't want to work less overtime. I'm like, okay, if you put in 5 years of hard work, we talked about Jesus made $800,000 in a property in 8 years. That took hard work. He didn't just stop, right? So I just think that's an important thing. So all right. So now you got your triplex. What came next?
So after the triplex, we ended up, at that point, we got into flipping. So we're flipping a few properties, a year. My family comes from a construction background, specifically my dad, so. Okay. So that was cool. I was like, okay, now I'm kind of getting into it. We're getting into some of the flips. And then that was awesome because it allowed me to build up capital to, at that point, buy more, right? So buy more and buy more. So we ended up picking up a few additional properties, a duplex, single family, and like the doors kind of started stacking little by little. So for me, I'm big on reinvesting and putting all that money back into what I believe in, right? Now we have a business. I invest a lot of the money that we make in our business and then right back into real estate. And I think this is going to be huge for a lot of first responders is there is no flex in having a lot of money in your savings account or having a lot of dead equity. So that's very important, right? And I'm not saying to knock anyone or whatever, like, a good safety cushion is optimal. But when you have a lot of money in your savings account and you're letting it, be eroded by inflation and not having something that's paying you interest on it, that is not a flex. Having a lot of equity in a house, sometimes you hear, hey, I have $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 worth of equity in my house. It's dead equity. It's not doing anything. You could have $1 billion. If you're not doing anything with it, it doesn't matter. And that's just being super honest. It's knowing what to do with that equity. It's knowing what to do with that money. That is going to put you ahead. And like I mentioned, I worked crazy overtime before. I went from working 40, 45 extra days a year to zero. I work zero overtime, right? And I'm very fortunate. Our department, we don't get hired or force hired very often. Maybe it's 5 times a year, if that. So it allows me to really pour into both my family as well as the real estate stuff, my business and all that.
That's awesome. So, what I want to talk about, you jumped in, you learned it. A lot of people think that you have to know everything before you start, right? I think it's a common misconception. So why do you think some of these younger guys and gals on the job, whether maybe not even on the job, but like we all talk to friends and stuff, and I know they have the means. They're sitting there with $50,000-$60,000 in their savings account. They're making $200,000 a year. They have unlimited overtime. I would argue that first responders are actually meant to do this because, number one, we solve people's worst days every single day. Like, without getting into gruesome details, Jesus and I have been on some of the gnarliest things that anyone in the planet could ever see. And we go back right to the dinner table and just start doing our normal life. We are problem solvers. I think first responders are meant for this, absolutely meant for it. What do you think is the reason why some of these people are hesitant? A lot of them come to me and they want to do it. They're hesitant, they're scared. And 5 years from now, I'll have the same conversation. Why do you think that is? Like, what is holding them back?
I think it's lack of information and really knowing how much it could change their life. Honestly, because sometimes it's very easy to get tunnel vision on like the big picture and like a lot of money fast, where sometimes maybe you look at real estate and be like, oh, that's going to take a while to pay off, right? Well, you have to start at some point, like you have to take that leap at some point, and I would say, going back to your point in regards to first responders being the perfect people to invest, I 1,000% agree. And I love working with first responders who want to invest. And I'll say that for this reason, is because when you're dealing, and my wife deals with more of the public side, buying, selling, she's a freaking monster at that. She does awesome. Yeah. And it's because, one, she has like a bubbly personality. Two is she's very empathetic to feelings and all of the emotions that go into buying a house. And that's great. Like, that's perfect. She should, right? For someone that's buying their primary residence, or someone who's looking to just buy a house in general, right? Where first responders are very, for the most part, black and white. Hey, we have a fire, we're going to put it out. Hey, I have this house that I'm analyzing. These are the numbers. Does it make sense? Yes or no? I have this patient, they're having trouble breathing. Are we going to utilize a CPAP based off of these parameters? Yes or no? You know what I mean? Like, it's very black and white. There's very little gray area when it comes to real estate investing. Is there a risk associated? Absolutely. You know what I mean? But that's where you do your homework and you make sure that you're minimizing that risk to the best of your ability. And that's why I'm not a fan of investing in stocks, because I have very little control over them. I have, very, very little control over them, if any. So I personally do the minimum, just whatever my city matches, and then everything else I put into real estate, because I have direct control over it. If it for some reason doesn't work out, it's falling back on me. You know what I mean? I have no one else to blame for it other than myself.
Yeah, I agree. I think firefighters and police, nurses, we're all type A people. I think there's so many business. Like, I've ran a couple businesses in my life, but what I've seen as far as like how you bridge the gap between what we do every day. Firefighting is a very systematic approach, right? We get to work at the 6 o'clock. We check out the rig. We go through our thing. There's a lineup. Think of that lineup like your first business meeting of the day, right? And you have a plan of attack. And then when you get on the call, you're utilizing the resources. And so I try to compare like what I'm doing at work to what I'm doing in my business. Instead of having, we're both captains, but I have an awesome crew. So that is my team. That's my work team. I have my paramedics that kick butt. I have my engineer that's smart, knows how to pump and drive. He's taking so much off my plate. I turn that into the business world, and I look over and I have an awesome agent that's going to bring me stuff. I no longer have to do the tasks that I'm assigning those tasks to the right people, right? And so the real estate agent, contractor, the title company, insurance agency, I don't have to learn all that. They know it. They bring it to me, and we operate as a really good team. But I want to kind of go back with one thing that you said as far as risk. Number one, we risk our lives all the time. We've been in burning buildings. We were both on the Eaton fire where there's 9,000 houses burned down. It is a very, very, very dangerous job. But as far as real estate risks are concerned, I also don't do stocks other than just, I don't even do my deferred comp, to be honest. But one question, because I was an idiot and I lost 30 grand in the underwater mining, maybe it'll come back. But the point is, I get this question or this response a lot from people, not only on the job, but off the job. They'll say, Brian, it's so risky. Like, I have 20 properties now, right? I've only been to 3 of them, which is like, I still think that's kind of cool, right? Yeah. But one of the things is like, that is so risky. And I think is this you could do this to some of the people in your community because I think it's kind of fun. So I challenge them, and the listeners, this is not meant to like put you down. This is a question that I was asked and I was embarrassed. So they asked, someone asked me, Brian, or I'll ask these younger guys, hey, you have a deferred comp, right? And they're like, yeah. And they're like, oh, what do you, how much do you put in? They're like, oh, I match like 8%. I go, okay, tell me the name of the fund you're in. And they're like, I'm in the target 45. I go, great. Give me one company that is in the target 45. And they don't know the answer. And neither did I. And so they're putting $800 to $1,000 per paycheck into a fund that they don't even know the name of the company. And I go, that's not control. Firefighters want control. That is not control to me. That is speculation. And sure, maybe it goes up 8-10%. And then what I challenge them even further, I go, how much did you make in Q1, 2, 3, 4 in your deferred comp portfolio? How much have you made over time? And I ask them about the taxes on the back end. I guess the point of this story is a lot of us, including myself, didn't know the answers. And I want to know. And so I could tell you down to the penny how much I'm making in my real estate portfolio every single month because I do the bookkeeping.
Mm-hmm.
There's no longer speculation. I'm in control. If it's not going good, it's on me, and I'm going to have to make it better. So
yeah.
I just think I came back around to like why people are scared, and I just think they just don't know. Like they don't know.
Yeah. And I say it all the time. I mean, do I believe real estate is the best vehicle when it comes to investing? Absolutely. But are there other ways that people can invest? Absolutely. I always tell people invest in something. I'll be honest, I don't even really care what it is. You know, I just know from like a family aspect that I want the best for them, and I want them to be more at home with their families doing the things that matter, which is spending time with them. Yeah. You know, and I always tell guys, especially people that are newer on, be very careful on who you take advice from, whether it's people in the fire service, whether it's family, whether it's friends. I always say it, you know, but I do not listen to anyone who I wouldn't trade lives with or finances with, or someone that is not someone that I look up to. You know, and it's very easy based off your circle of influence to listen to, you know, someone's broke uncle who's never bought a house on, hey, it's risky. It's like, dude, I listen to that. I'm like, I'm not listening to you, dude. You know, and it's not, I'm not disrespectful or anything. I just, you know, I just tune them out, and it's like, hey, that is what it is. Not only that, but then, you know, in the fire service in general, you have people that got hired maybe 30 years ago where they did go into firefighting or into that era of, you know, being hired at the fire department, buying that second house, buying a boat. So their advice is going to be very different than reality today, because at that point, sure, you were able to buy all those things. You're not able to do that now, you know, and this isn't a knock on any of the departments or any of the guys that work a lot of overtime, but you know, a lot of these departments you look at a lot of the guys that work insane amount of overtimes. And it's pretty sad, dude. Sometimes family life is maybe not what it should be. Yeah. And I think that's one of the things that for me allowed me to see the possibility of other things. Because do you make great money? Sure. You know, do you also have to live at the station 24/7? Yeah. At what expense? You know, time is something that you're not getting back. And the older I get, the more I like that really is important to me. You're not getting time back. You know, your kids are only going to be 5, 6, 7, 8, you know, however old for a limited amount of time. You know what I mean? So do something that is going to set you up financially to where you either don't have to work overtime or have to work limited overtime. And oftentimes, and I want to make this point too, is you listen to people like yourself, like me, right? Where now you have multiple doors that are generating revenue. They're bringing in monthly cash flow. You don't need 5, 10, 20, 30, 40 doors for something to be life-changing. Like you really don't, right? For us at this point, we enjoy it. It's damn near a sport, you know, like we really enjoy it, but you need yeah, if you knock it out of the park and you buy a few properties, dude, you're gonna be in a good spot. You know what I mean? Like you're gonna be in a really good spot. So
Yeah,
keep that in mind. Don't shoot for 100 doors off the get go. Just start start at one. You know, start with a small investment.
yeah. What I tell a lot of the people I work with in my community is if you could buy one or two out of state rental properties a year, or even in state, then whatever you can,
Yeah.
uh, whatever you decide to try, it'll change your bloodline. Like no joke. Time will go by and it just will change it. And the reality of it is, it's like the properties we're buying out of state, they're less than $200,000. So our down payment's small. So the risk is small, right? Um, and one thing you said that I wanted to chat about too is I know that we both love our departments. We love, like, I'm blessed every single day. My plan is not to quit this fire job until I'm either forced out of there or the timing's right with the family. But the reality of it is like those older generation guys, they're not wrong. Like me and you could walk away from this real estate game and we will be fine.
Mm-hmm.
But imagine not just being fine, but setting up the future. Like I'm worried about my kids having to live in, don't take this wrong if you live there, but I don't want my kids to live in Blythe or Barstow. I'm selfishly doing this stuff to build it for the next up, right? And that's why we do a lot of stuff in the fire service. Like, who's next up? We're just going to get replaced, but I want my kids to be able to live a good life and wherever they want. I want to be able to afford college. I don't want them to be in college and me working 100 overtimes to pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
I bought 2 properties when they're 8 years old because I knew by the time they were 18, they would be 10 years older. Mm-hmm. And at that point, I could refi and pull money out cash wise. So make no mistake that even if you don't do any of this stuff, we're not trying to push you one way or the other. You're going to be fine. But if you do utilize the amount of money we make and the amount of money we can make to take a small risk and do it, it'll pay off so much for your family. And I just never met a real estate investor that said, I wish I hadn't done this, I guess. Right?
Yeah. Well, dude, and one of the really cool things I will say about specifically the department that I work for is, dude, a lot of the guys around me are action takers and they're freaking about it. Like all of the guys or most of the guys that I work with, at least at my station, invest in real estate.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And that's so cool. But, like I think that's the best
because of you, probably.
Dude, well, it gives me a lot of joy knowing exactly what you said, that it changes bloodlines. You know what I mean? Like it's not just small impact. And I'll be honest, I think you're in the same place, and I say this as humbly as I possibly can. I play for impact now. You know what I mean? Like I'm very fortunate. I'm extremely blessed to be in the position that I'm in with, both the fire service, with our real estate portfolio, with our real estate company, right? I think when you first start off, you start off for self, and that's how it should be. You can't help anyone else out if you're not in a good spot. You have family, then you're all about your family, right? Hey, I want to make sure that they're in a good spot. And then you get to a point where you're like, okay, I'm good. I'm fortunate. My family's in a good spot. And then is when you play for impact, which I think is huge, because, and especially like the person that has that type of mentality is very good, because, they're doing it for the right reason. It's like at the end of the day, you could walk away from this and, you're going to be in a good spot, dude. You're not going to be hurting for money. Like you're going to be in a good spot. But to me, people that want to give based off of wanting to see people do better and level themselves up and be home more with their family, like that's the best type of advice to listen for. And I think both yourself and, hopefully myself, is people listen to us. And that's why we have a lot of business on the real estate side, is like people could just tell we're genuine, I'm not trying to sell someone a house who doesn't want to buy a house. I'm not trying to, you know what I mean? Like I'm genuinely here to try and help and do as much good as I can for as long as I can for as many people as I can.
Yeah, I always find it funny doing business with people at work, and like I'll have a conversation and because I charge for my one-on-one coaching, which is a very small portion of what I actually do, because I give so much of my time and my knowledge, and I think it's important when people are paying for something, they actually take a little bit more action. But I find it's a hard conversation to have, right, with these people. But I think one of my favorite things that's happened to me recently is the reason I want to be very clear, guys, while I'm doing this. Like, first and foremost, obviously it's for my family. I'm at a position now where I think I'm like, I could probably stop buying rentals and be pretty good, right? But my purpose is to find these younger versions of myself that maybe wouldn't have made that $30,000 underwater mining mistake, right? And so recently, one of there's a guy at our job, and I'm not going to say names because if he wants to share his story a little bit more, he will. A young medic, he's 27 years old. I didn't even get hired until I was 33. He's 27 years old. He decided to move back in with the parents for a little bit just to save some money. He bought 3 out-of-state rental properties in a year.
Wow.
About 2 months ago, he called me and said, Brian, I have a chance to go rent a house in Newport with all my buddies. It's going to be a blast. We're going to go out and try to like hang out with girls and all this stuff. I'm like, awesome. But what if we take this money and you go buy a property and you get those same dudes to move in, and now the property is pretty much paid for? I was like, I don't know how else to tell you. Just trust me. You could still go out. Like, you're going to go out and have fun. So he's kicking the can around. He's like, not sure what to do. He just called me 2 days ago. He's like, I found a property in Long Beach. It needs a lot of work. I go, okay, let's get an inspection report on it. I helped him look at the inspection report, and we use that as a negotiating tool to talk the seller down. He talked him down almost $40,000.
Wow.
He's under contract. Listen, you guys, he's 27 at our department. He owns 3 out-of-state rental properties. He just bought a primary that his mortgage is going to be pretty much zero. Think about that.
That's awesome.
By the time he turns 33, when I got hired, he will have so much equity. He's going to be promoted up the ranks. That like literally gave me chills when I heard it, because that is exactly why I'm doing it. It is not about me making the money. It's about that. I told him, I go, 10 years from now, bro, when you have a family and you realize what you've accomplished, like, I want you to be proud of yourself, because he's the one who took action, not me. But I go, you got to take me out for a beer, and I hope that I hope that that's why I'm doing this. And so when I saw that, I was like, it was a pretty cool full circle moment for me, and that's why I'm doing this. And I hope that's what people see, as opposed to me being like this greedy guy trying to make all this money in rentals. I want to, like, I'm in that impact mode right now. Same thing. And
and you have to remember too, is the more that you make, the more that you can help, and the more that you can give. Right. And like I said, a lot of people, and especially like for me, growing up in a Hispanic household and everything, it's like money isn't everything. Money isn't everything. That's what you're that's what you're taught, and absolutely, money is not everything. Right. But money will allow you to do some pretty freaking cool stuff, man. See some cool places, have some cool experiences with your family. Like just I would say to a younger version of even myself is set yourself up financially to where you're going to be good later on, and you have that sense of delayed gratification.
Yep. So we'll wrap this up shortly, but I'm going to go with 2 more questions.
Yeah,
I want to hear a little bit more about Home Dream. I think it's important. I'm doing all this out of state stuff, guys, but Jesus is dialed in Southern California. I know you're a real estate. You and your wife have a real estate company. You guys do flips. You guys have a brokerage. You have construction. Like, tell me about that, because I think there's a lot of people that are afraid to do the out of state stuff, and I want them to connect with you about that, because you're the guy. And so tell me a little bit about that business and what you do, so they could reach out to you.
Thank you.
Later in the show notes, I'm gonna put the connections of how they can get a hold of you. But I just want to know what it is you do. Like.
So we own a company called Home Dream Real Estate. We're based here in Whittier, California, and we help people essentially do everything real estate related. So my big idea was to have something that's all encompassing, and that's exactly what we do. The buying, the selling, the investing side is huge for us. 60 to 70% of our clients are investors. We have a construction division, property management, and then interior design.
Holy crap.
So so there's a lot to it. So my idea was to be like a one-stop shop, much like you'd go to like a Home Depot and get everything that you would need for construction. So my idea was to be Home Dream Real Estate and have everything encompassed. And like you said, from a business aspect, there are people that are running certain divisions. So it's not like I'm doing everything, that'd be impossible. So what I do specifically, I deal with more operations and the real estate investing side. My wife deals with more of the buying and the selling side, and she's as sharp as can be when it comes to the investing side too. So we'll analyze deals together. If there's someone that's looking to buy rental property, we'll look at numbers together and we'll run all of that together. But she deals with more of the public side. I deal with more the business. And I think that's important, right? To have someone working in the business and on the business. Okay. So we've been in an operation for like a year and a half, dude, which is insane to even say. Our team is growing. We have someone, like I said, leading the construction division. We have a few agents now. We have 3 agents. Have an assistant here pretty soon. So things are as busy as can be, but I love it. And I always tell people is real estate, obviously the fire service is huge, but real estate is all we do. Like that is our jam, you know? So, like I said, especially go ahead.
I know. See, I think that's why we get along so good is like people just nerd out on this stuff. And I know that you guys, like what you've created in a short amount of time is like inspiring to me. You're pushing me to be better in this too. So, and for everyone who doesn't know, like Jesus' wife is a savage. Like she is awesome. Like they're a team. That's what you need. You need to marry someone like her because you're gonna go far no matter what. So.
Dude, yeah, she is. I always tell her, I was like, man, if you were not my wife, like I would want you as my real estate agent. And it's funny, I have a story super quick, but one of the guys that I work with was looking at a house in Whittier to buy. She called the agent, ended up not answering, you know, and she tries to call him again, not a big deal, to try and see the house and put an offer on the house. Guy never gets back to her, emails the guy, leaves a voicemail, like this guy's just not getting back. And she saw that there was an open house, like the weekend coming up. Dude, she straight up just rolls up, you know, she's like, what's going on? I've been trying to reach you for the last week. You know, you haven't called, you haven't texted back, haven't emailed. Dude, the guy was, I'll be honest, he was like, it caught him off guard, but he was super impressed. Long story short is he has a house now, you know, but he ended up getting it because he's like, dude, I like how you work. I like how persistent you are. And I like the fact that I know you're going to get things done. So yeah, she's a freaking beast, dude, when it comes to the buying and the selling side. And she deals with more the realtors. So even in the communication with them, she does a great job. She's our rock and yeah, she kills it.
We're going to connect all our listeners to her because she can get it done. So that's going to be awesome. 2 more questions. I think this is a good leading question from there. Dude, I've known you for a while. I know you're a busy you take your firefighter job very serious. You take your business really serious. You're also a father of 2 children, correct?
Yeah.
How, like, I see you all over your social media. Just you're a very present dad, and I respect the absolute crap out of that. How do you juggle all those 3 things? Like what's your advice for someone trying to get into this stuff? Because the family is the most important, but like, how do you juggle that? And how do you do such a good job? I need to know.
So it's going to be in one word: systems. Okay. Systems is how I do it. So especially dealing with the operations side of Home Dream, it's very important that everything has a system. So I'll get to, you know, the family life and everything specifically, but we have systems for everything. I mean, if a deal closes, there's a series, we use Monday.com, of like 20 things that are being done after the deal closes, right? So whether it's putting things, we use Follow Up Boss too, putting certain dates on Follow Up Boss, making sure to put it on our personal calendar, sending out a letter, putting on the calendar when we're going to follow up 1 week, 1 month, 1 year, 6 months, you know, all that stuff. All of that has a checklist. So I live off of systems, right? Even as much as like waking up in the morning. So I wake up usually at 4 in the morning, 4:30 in the morning at the latest. Yeah. So I have systems for that, right? The night before, and it's a super simple system, but the night before is, you know, putting out all the clothes that I'm going to wear that day, putting my toothbrush out the night before, my toothpaste. Like I have to work off of systems because there's too much. I can't waste really any like mental space dealing with little like just random things that I have to think about. And that to me is huge. And that allows me to build the systems into, you know, now like spending time with my kids, being fully present, because at the end of the day, we are huge about having these conversations. You know, myself and my wife we're doing all of this for our kids. I don't want to get lost in the real estate stuff. I don't want to get lost in the business. because then it's like, well, then what are we doing all this for? You know, I'm doing it for my kids and to be able to spend more time with them. So the time with them for me is sacred. You know what I mean? I wake up at 4 a.m. and I remember hearing this, and hopefully it helps some people out. I wake up at 4 a.m, so I'm taking my time, not their time. You know what I mean? Like I'm doing that so I get an additional like 3 hours of work time in, you know, whether it's going to the gym or just my time, you know, or working on the business, an additional 3 hours on, you know, for me to spend in just solitude and be able to knock out some deep work. Because I'm not trying to spend those 3 hours that it would have taken me there later on in the day when now they're home from school.
Yeah.
So that to me is huge. And I keep that as like the one thing where it's like I said, my time with them is sacred. When they have sports, phones are away. I'm fully present. I'm watching, you know, I'm hanging out at the house too. Obviously hard to do, right? But phones are away for the most part, or not where they're like out on the counter. They're in a drawer somewhere. That way they're not seeing us like just constantly on the phone.
Love that. I think we all learned from that. Yeah, I think,
yeah. And there is a sense of mixing the two. So I have actually some pretty cool videos, cool pictures of my kids at job sites ever since, I mean, forever, to be honest. You know, I
was just going to say that because I think the important part is your kids are going to emulate what you do, and the cell phone thing, I need to be better at that, honestly. But my kids are always asking me about this real estate stuff. I'll have them jump in on stuff. And the fact that you are taking your kids to job sites and your dad like probably loves the crap out of that. Like, you know, he's banging hammers. Like there's no better lesson for them to see that. And they're going to follow what you do, but like include them, right? Kids are mature enough to have that. So dude, respect, man.
Yeah.
So the last question I have, and I think it's a good one to end on. So if you could talk to the rookie firefighter, you're walking into that rookie station, you know, and if you can go back in time and give yourself some advice, and I don't want it to be fire related, I want it to be related to like what we're talking about here. Like what advice would you give yourself? And I think some of the younger generation will probably appreciate that. What would you tell rookie Jesus firefighter about his future? Like, what would you say?
I would say be very careful who you listen to and make sure that the advice that they're giving you applies to where you're at in life, like right now. You know, and I think that's huge. And I know I touched on it a little bit, but making sure that people are giving you advice that applies to your current situation is like the biggest thing ever, you know, and be selective in who you listen to. You know, and it's not even necessarily that people sometimes are trying to give bad advice. It's just that's what they know. You know, it's just it's what is ingrained in them. It's what they've learned. There's nothing wrong with it, you know, and especially fire guys. Like there's no one that is saying, hey, I'm going to give this guy a bad financial advice. I want him to be struggling. You know, that's just not the case. It's just what they learned when they were growing up, and it's their reality. So, you know, take it for what it is, take it for advice, and seek out other people that are maybe doing something closer to what you eventually want to do, or living a life that you want to eventually live, you know?
Yeah, I'm so stoked. You were my first guest. This was awesome. Thank you so much for your time. Guys, I highly recommend you connect with Jesus. He's dialed, obviously. He wants to give back to you. If you're a local fireman, firefighter, first responder, nurse, whatever, their family's business is rad. The whole point of this podcast and both of our missions right now is to help the younger generation of people. If you don't connect with them, then that's on you. But how can they connect you? Do you have a website? What's your social media? What's the best way? Because I want the people listening to have access to you. I think it would benefit them. And if they don't, I'm gonna track them down. So
no, thank you for that. Yeah. So my personal Instagram page is at POV _ fire dad. Okay. And our company Instagram is at Home Dream. My wife's is at Jasleen _ realtor. And honestly, that's probably a pretty easy way to get a hold of us. You know, I mean, if someone prefers, you know, email info@homedreamre.com, but I would say Instagram is a pretty good way of doing it.
Cool. And I'll put that all down in the description. So Again, thank you so much for your time, man. I appreciate everyone listening. This is my first guest on the First Responder Real Estate Podcast. If you want to be a guest, hit me up. If you're in any kind of first responder world, and I don't want to just pigeonhole this to that. I use the term everyday heroes. So if you're a hard-working mom or something that has a business that you want to highlight, that's what we're doing here. We're trying to grow each other's businesses, help the younger generation. I just started a free school account. It's the First Responder Real Estate Academy. There's hundreds of firefighters in there. We do weekly calls. I'm opening that up to everyone because I want people to learn the stuff. And I know the price of entry sometimes is holding people back, but I want you guys to get just to be better in life and better finances. And so your future generations could and bloodlines could benefit. So anyway, thank you, everyone. And stay tuned for the next show. Take care.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.